Hi, I'm Foyleman from ModsOnline, and I'm here to give you an introduction into the Call of Duty 4 mapping and modding tools. They have just been released, and we are ready to start making our own custom maps and getting into making mods and stuff like that for the Call of Duty 4 game. And I want to give you a very brief introduction into working with making maps for the game, because some people are finding it confusing to install and run the program and get the first map out there, while others may be very new to this. This may be a brand new experience, and you need something easy, such as a video. So here we go. I'm going to give you an introduction into this. Now, I'm going to assume that you've already installed the game and played it at least once. It is going to be important for later that you have played the game. So at least start up the game, put in your profile name, both single player and multiplayer, by the way. And then I'm going to also assume that you've already downloaded the compiling tools, the COD mapping compiling tools. I have already, which is right here, the mod tools. Now, if you have not, then you should probably head over to ModsOnline.com, and you'll find some right here, an option to download the mapping tools. And if you don't see this, you'll also find some great tutorial links over here on the left-hand side, and forums full of people who are willing to help. You can see it's already filled up, and this is within the first few hours of having the tools released. So if you're having trouble, try that. You can also try codhq.com. COD headquarters, JD over there put up the file for us the first time, and great downloads and everything. Okay, so let's assume that you've already downloaded this now, and I'm going to double click it and start opening it up. Now, this is a fairly large zip file. Look at that, 600 megs. And it contains all the files that you're going to have to extract into your games folder in order to run the tools. And I'm going to show you how to do that in just a second. It's so big, I'm still waiting for it to open up. There it is. Now you see, lots of files. And as I said, you need to extract these files into your game folder. So what you want to do is you want to press the extract button. And then you want to go over to the drive where you installed the game. And you want to go to Program Files, Activision, Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, and that's the folder you want. Then press the extract button, and it'll start putting the files where they need to be. So I'm going to close that up, because I've already done this, but you would actually run the extraction, then you can close that window. And then what you need to do is you're probably going to want a shortcut in order to get to the compile tools, because it doesn't put a shortcut on your desktop, but it does install the necessary program. So I'm going to open that folder up again here. And what you need to do is go over to the program files on the C drive in my case, and go over to Activision, Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. There's going to be new files and folders in here, and in the bin folder is another folder called COD4 Compile Tools. Open that up, and here, COD4 Compile Tools.exe. That's going to be the program you need to run. So I just right-clicked, I said send to my desktop, and now I've got a nice little shortcut over there. And I'm going to launch that up right now. Alright. There we go. Popped up over my window. And now if you don't see this window right away, it's because this is it's the first time you're ever running it, and it's going to say, okay, where is my COD4 PRG file? A PRJ file, and that's your project file for the game, and it needs to know that for the necessary information for running this tool. And it should open up with a window that automatically shows you the COD4.PRJ file. And if it does not, well, then you need to go into your bin folder, your Activision Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare bin folder, and here it is right there, COD4.PRJ. And then you select that and press open, and it should open right up for you. And then you'll get this window. And right here we have, this is where the game is installed. That should be right by default. We have our level compiling options. These are the levels that we have available already made. We didn't make any of these. And how we can compile it and then run the game later. And then over here we have our applications for launching the level editor, the effects editor, the asset manager, run converter. Really all I'm concerned about in this brief tutorial is the level editor. And then we have some documentation and tutorials. And although we should have ModsOnline on there, huh? But click on this link. You really need to click on this link, and it's going to open up the modding tools, the wiki for the modding tools. And then you want to create a bookmark on your browser for this, because you'll be visiting there a lot, I think, especially if you like this, because there's going to be plenty of tutorials and information that'll be easy to find and easy to follow. Alright, so let's go over to the level compiling. It's time, or our applications. It's time to open the level editor. So click on that button and give it a moment. You see it's starting to load up. And for those of you that have mapped for Call of Duty before, will say, hey, I know this. This is Radiant. Yeah, it is. So it's going to be very familiar for you to work within this editor if you've already done so before. Now, a quick rundown on what we're looking at here is obviously we have our menus and tools. We have our 2D window. Now remember, the game runs in 3 dimensions, 3D. That's left, right, forward, back, up, down. But we can't necessarily instantly map in all those directions at once, so it presents it to us in 2 dimensions at a time, sort of like a piece of paper in grid work. So I can work on this dimension, and then I can work on others, which I'll show you later, how to flip back and forth. But we don't even have to in most cases, because right here is our 3rd dimension, our Z window. So we have X, Y, and Z. Those are your 3 dimensions. Now over here is a 3D previewer. So this shows us all 3 dimensions at once, so we can kind of get a rough idea of what our level looks like before we actually start playing it. And over here we have the textures. These are the images we can apply to walls and other surfaces in the game to make it look like a level. Now if when you open this up and you find it running kind of slow, perhaps you want to reduce the amount of information that's being drawn by the textures themselves. And you can do that very quickly by going up into the textures menu here and going down to, now what was that? It was texture resolution. We can change the resolution of the images being loaded. I just have it on normal, but you can switch it to low if you want. And then you can also change the texture window scale. Now by default you probably already see 50%, these big images. But I'd like to be able to see more of my textures at once, so I'm going to go into here and change it back to 25 so I can see more. And it's easier to find them and just pop them into the game. Now that you have a rough idea of what the editor is like, now what we want to do is we want to select our base texture for creating the level. Now base texture is something that should be used whenever you're creating all your levels. It is a texture that does not require a lot of resources when loading in the game. And that's important because let's say you create a wall and the player never sees the other side of the wall. Well, that would be a waste to load the texture on that other side of the wall because the player never sees it. So we want a base texture, something that doesn't take up any additional resources. And in this case, that base texture is called the caulk texture. And I'm going to show you how to find it, because looking through all these textures, it's going to get kind of difficult. So what you want to do is you want to narrow your selection here. So I'm going to open up this textures menu and go to locale and change it to tools. That'll give me my tools textures, the textures related to the editor itself. I click on that. Now it's fewer to find, fewer to look through, easier to find the caulk texture. There it is. And it'll say caulk right up here, and when I select it, it'll show in red. And now I can start creating my world, my brushes. And let's start off by creating our first brush. Now brush, by the way, is a term you brought up by the idea of it's an artist. This is an artist's world, and we have to paint our world. And in the 3D modeling world, it is done in like blocks, like building blocks, sort of like Legos. So we want our brush will look like a block. Now in order to create your first one, now remember, we're doing a test level. This is going to be a small room that we can just throw in a player spawn point, some light, and then just going. Now test rooms are used all over the place for just running. I want to make a ladder and make sure it works right. I want to make a door and see how it looks. Test room. I mean, you just throw together a test room and then you compile it and you test it out in the game, and boom, you're ready to see how things work. Well, that's what this is going to be like. Now let's draw out our first block, our room. And the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to left click and drag, and you'll see a red line start up, and just drag across the room, and there you go. Now I have my first brush. And if you look over here in the 3D window and use your arrow keys, you can move forward and back and look side to side, you can see the 3-dimensional brush. And now if you look over here, we can see what the brush is looking like. We can change the shape by clicking outside of a wall to drag that wall, and over here. And we can also do the corner. If we click outside the corner and drag that corner, we can change the shape that way. And if we want to move it, we can click inside and drag it around. So that's how we create our brush. And we can do the same thing over here in our up and down window, our Z window. Although when we do it, you can see it over here in the 3D window how it's getting bigger, but it's not necessarily easy to see what we're creating without changing our view. Well, first of all, before we change our view, just know that I created a roughly 600. If you look here, it says Y600 and says X640. Roughly 600 by 600 size room. It's just big enough to quickly run around and make a quick test here. And then over here we have the Z window, which it shows it in black because it's a big solid brush here. But if I'm having trouble seeing what's going on, I can actually hold down the control key and hit the tab key to change my view. So right here I'm in the XY top view. I'm looking from the top down. Hit control tab. I'm now in the front view. I'm looking through the front. Hit it again. I'm now looking through the side. Hit it again, and now looking from the top. And now this funky little thing here, that's your camera. That's where you're looking from, right in over here. Okay. And actually you'll see it move if I use the arrow keys and then click in here. I click in here to refresh where the camera is located. Okay. So now we want to get the height correct. And I'm thinking, well, most rooms would probably be about 128 pixels high. I mean 28 units high. And that's what these numbers are. These are all units. So let's make something that goes up to about, I don't know, this is a test room, so let's just do 192. This says 192 up here, so I'm going to drag it till it hits 192. Now, if you're having trouble getting it to snap to that correct location, then maybe your grid is the wrong size. Now, by default, your grid is going to be 16 units. That means each one of these little blocks is 16 units, rather than 1 unit at a time. And it makes it easier for just drawing out quick things and snapping to that grid. But if you need to change that, I like to change it to 8 units because I find that to be a great wall thickness. What you want to do is you want to hit the bracket keys, which is to the right of the P, the letter P. And if I hit the left bracket, it goes down to 8. See it right down here? G, 8, 16, 32, and you can see the grid changing as I do that. Well, that's how you change your grid. And now I've got it down to 8, and that should be good enough. I've got up to 192, down to 0. And now I'm going to show you what is known as a very controversial method of mapping. Generally, what you want to do is you want to draw out everything brush by brush. And that will make sure that you don't have any errors in the map that you can't recover from. I'm talking about errors that make you have to start over from the very, very beginning, which can be horrible, heartbreaking, you know. So what you need to do, but this method here is going to use a hollow method. Now this method is controversial because it should only ever be used on a square or rectangle single brush. In other words, don't select multiple things and hollow it. Select one square-like brush, hollow that, and that's it. 90% of the time you won't have an error. That's why I'm saying you might not want to do this, but I want to give you a quick rundown. And using the hollow tool is a quick way to show you, oh, that's the whole overall product that I'm trying to come up with. Okay? I say that because they're going to hit me in the forums later for using this. Okay, so hit the tool. And there you go. Instantly you see I'm now inside of a room. My camera was before inside of a brush, so it couldn't see anything. Now I'm inside of this hollow room. And now one of the other problems that occurs whenever you use the hollow tool is all these brushes end up overlapping each other, which can cause visual issues, which is no good. Actually, if you can look right here, I'm going to zoom into this. I'm going to right-click and drag to move my screen around. Then I'll use the middle mouse wheel to zoom in. Now you can see it's overlapping, and I'll show you over here in the corner too a little bit if I can. These brushes overlap each other, which is not good. We want them to be butt up against each other. And actually later when we optimize, we'll want to miter the corner, which means cut along this. So that instead of having brush, break, brush, we'll have just one long brush, so it's mitered. But that's for an optimization video, not for this one right now. So now we need to get rid of this overlapping. And oh, I don't know if you just heard that sound. That was the sound of my map automatically saving. It's a good time for me to say, you know what? Save and save often. And don't necessarily rely on that autosave. Because imagine if you make a mistake and it autosaves that mistake. You can't go back. So actually right now is a good time to go into saving. I'm going to press the save button. And I'm going to create my own custom map. This already has a defaulted to the map source folder, which is right where we want to be. And I'm going to type test 2. And actually, this is a good point for me to say, are we making a single player or a multiplayer map? I'm going to show you quickly single player, and then I'm going to convert it to multiplayer, okay? Alright, so here we go. Test 2, and then press save. All done. Now we got our map saved. Save and save often, and sometimes save in multiple versions, so you can always go back to something that worked. Okay, now I'm going to zoom back out here, and I'm going to hit the escape key. You might hear me hitting that a lot because I want to make sure I don't accidentally have anything selected. See, whenever something's selected, I hit the escape key. I can deselect it. And now I want to change the I want to get the walls out from where the floors are. So I'm going to go around and select all the walls, and I'm going to do that by holding the Shift key and left clicking. Click, click. Use the arrow key to turn the view. And I'm going to click and click. And now I can see all my walls are selected, but I want to be able to change the height of the wall. So I'm going to hold down the Control tab to get a side view here, and I'm going to adjust the height so that it's inside the walls and not, see, there I'm changing the wall and you see it in the 3D. I want it to be right inside the wall, like that. And then I want to go ahead and change the wall. So I'm going to hit Escape, and then I'm going to select Opposing Walls, Camera, Shift click, and I'm going to change the, go back to the top view by holding Control tab and pressing that twice. And I'm going to go outside the wall and adjust the shape. See, I'm doing the outside the wall. If I do outside the corner, I might accidentally change the width of some of these walls, which would be wrong. And now you see they're inside the wall. Now hit Escape again, and we have a properly shaped room. Now another note that I should say, I've been looking around in here with the arrow keys. This is, I guess it's kind of old school to do that, because using the mouse to look around in here used to be a nightmare with the older versions. But you can do that. You can do that by holding the right mouse button and dragging, and you can look around. But I find it just easier to just use the arrow key. I can hold down the arrow key, or I can just click each way and look around. And also I can use the A to look up, and the Z to look down. And I can strafe using the comma and the period. Okay. So now that we have a room, I'll save again. Let's put in some textures. Let's make this look like a room. And right now we still have our Tools textures, and we want to select something else. So let's make sure everything's deselected. Escape. Let's go up to our textures and go to Locale, and in this case go back to All. And now I'm going to go to my textures again, and I'm going to go to Surface Type and select something else like concrete. That's just a basic texture. Alright, and now we want to just select something in here that'll look like it belongs in the game. And oh, there's some brick. We'll use that for the wall. And this is basic concrete. Don't select decal. Decal's for something else, for another tutorial included. We're going to put in some concrete. Now before I select that texture, I'm going to select where I'm going to apply it. And now I don't want to apply it on the entire brush by hitting Shift click. No, I don't want the entire brush selected to see its outline and everything. No, I just want the top of it selected. So I'm going to hit Escape, and I'm going to hold Control, Shift, and click. And that'll just give me the top surface of that brush. See, I'll zoom out. See, just the top surface, which is exactly where we want the texture to be applied. And then I'll select the texture. There's a nice concrete texture. Perfect. Now we want to do something similar to all the walls. Now let's select the wall. I hit Escape, and I hit Control, Shift, click to get a wall in there. And let's find that one of those brick textures up here. Here we go. And it looks a little interesting. I don't know if I care for all that. Here, I'll do this one, the second one up there. There we go. And now I'm ready to apply that texture to another wall. And now I could just deselect and apply it there, but there's a quicker method. I can hold down the Control, Shift, and middle mouse button to apply the selected texture to the wall I'm clicking. Nice and easy. Now there's methods of adjusting these textures if you wanted to. You could actually hit the S key and pull up this Surface Inspector and adjust the horizontal stretch. You can try and fit one texture into the whole surface. You can also change the size of the texture and the shifting. And actually, I believe if you hit, if you click in here on the surface and use the arrow keys, let's see, and hold the Shift and use the arrow keys, you can see I'm shifting the texture around. Now that's important later if you want to, let's say, line up a door texture. But alright, so those are just some basic ideas on how you can get things to work within your map. And I'm going to hit Cancel, I don't need that, or I could hit S key to close it up, and hit Escape so I don't change my wall, and I want to put a ceiling texture on there. Let's look up. Okay, select, Escape, and then Control, Shift, Select, and let's find another concrete. Let's just select the second one, and hit Escape. Now we've got our room. Alright, Z to look down, and save the map again. Okay, now we have our basic room, but we don't have a way to get into the room. We need a spawn point. Now since I said we're going to start off with a single player map, what we want to do is we want to put in a single player spawn point. And to do that, we hold that, we right click the map, the grid area, and it'll bring up this menu. And what we want to do is put in an info player start, like that. There's our player. And look over here in the Z window, make sure it's not it was sticking in the floor. We don't want it outside the room, because entities outside the room or any holes in the room, that'll cause an error when we make it into a playable level. It'll cause an error called a leak. And that's because light, light, can get out into the voidness, the empty space of the map. And it can't compile light that shoots out forever. It needs to reflect off of something or have a finite end. It can't go infinitely. And that's why it's important not to have any leaks. So we're going to make sure the player is on the floor. I'm using my Z window, but of course I could hit Control Tab and look at it this way. Alright, and I'll go back to the top. And let's say when the player spawns, I don't want them facing the wall by accident. So I'm going to hit the N as in Nancy here, key, and bring up my entity editor. And it has this nice little group of buttons over here on the bottom corner. What that is the direction in which the player or the entity is facing. And in this case, it's the player when he spawns and the way he'll be facing. And I want to face him in this direction. So I'll press the button that's pointing in that direction. I did it, and there, now you see the player is facing in that direction. Alright, so I'll select that window, press N to close it. I select the window just to make sure that I'm closing that window. And I'm going to turn in the 3D view and show you what the player looks like. There it is. Oop, wrong key. That's what the player looks like inside the map. I know, nothing fancy. Alright, now we have the player. Hit escape so I don't mess anything up. We have the player in there. Now, the player's in the room, but he can't see because there's no lights. So we need some lights in here. Let's put a couple lights in. Now to put a light in, what we do is we right-click, add light. That's it. Now the light's in there. But when you do that, don't get nervous because everything changes in this window. It goes black, or I'm going to turn my view, or looks black and white, I should say. And what that is the map is giving you a rough idea of what the light is going to look like as it applies to the walls and stuff. And so in this case, it's going to shine in this corner as it is doing here. And you can see this is the radius. This is how far it shoots out. Now we can change those values, but I don't want to do that in this tutorial. That's really for something else. And where's the height? It's like right on the floor. Now let's put this closer to the ceiling, more in the middle, right in there. And now the light is going to shine in there, and I'm going to want to hit escape, and you can see there's the light entity right in there. Now I'm going to hold shift and click the light entity to select it again because I want another light. And now yes, I could right click and push another light in here, or I can copy the light I have now. And to copy it, you hit the space bar. Creates a copy, and I can drag it into here. There you go. Now let's say you don't like white light. Maybe you're trying to create blue and red, you know, like opposing teams. Well, if you want to change the color of the light, press the K key. There it comes up, and I can select a new color and press OK, and boom. And actually, if you look in your 3D window, it looks red now. And if I escape, the entity looks red too. Nice little feature there. Okay, so I'm going to hit the space again and create another one and drag it over here. And just for fun, I'll make that blue. Okay, and that's it. I'll leave this window dark and escape and save my map again. And that's it. You've just created your test level. Okay. So with that done, there's one more other thing that you might want to do well, we'll get into that with multiplayer. Let's say we're done. Let's say we're done making our single player map, okay? I'm going to close this out because I want to save my resources for compiling the map. The larger this gets, the more resources you're going to really want to save on. So I'm going to close the editor, and I'm going to go over into the level compiling tools, and I'm going to refresh the list of maps here. And you'll see it says Test 2 now. Now I'm ready to turn this into a map to play. So let's follow some of these steps here. First, compile the BSP. A little window will come up like this. It'll run through, and probably the game might open up for a moment and then close up again right about here when it's doing its lighting. Yep, there it goes. It's actually compiling some lighting information. Waiting for it, and then it says it's done, so I'll press any key to continue. Now we want to compile the reflections. I don't know how much reflection will actually go on in the map since we didn't put in all these fancy stuff, but you can do that. You can compile actually I recommend it. Compile the reflections here. Another black window will come up. The game will open up. It's going to check the reflections within the game. It's using some code that's important for the game. Next we need to build a fast file. Now, a fast file is the file that is used to provide your map to the world. They used to use IWD, which was a version of a zip file, but now they're using fast files, which you must use this level compiling tool in order to create one. So I'm going to click Build Fast File. There are no zone files. Would you like to create them? Yes, I would. Zone files. Here, let me push this over to here. It's not important that this string is missing. Okay. Zone files actually contain all the information that is in your map. Let's say you put a weapon in there and a player in there. It says, okay, a player's in there. Okay, a map's in there. Okay, this image is in there. And it's saying this is all in your zone. And if you ever change the map, you're going to have to update your zone file for it, so that all the information's in there, and then you're going to have to rebuild the fast file. I know, it's confusing, but you do it a few times and it'll make more sense. So if you're having issues after making some changes to the map, you have to update your zone file. So we'll work with the update the zone file later on. Now, we're ready to run and test our map, but before we do, I suggest you to select Enable Developer and Enable Cheat, which will allow you to run some developer options in there, such as no clip, so you can look around and look for issues. Now we can just say Run Selected Map. It's going to pop up with a little window here. Make sure the disk was already inside the into your CD-ROM. And here comes the game. And let's move that back into position. Yes, Infinity Ward. And here's the game. I'm now in my level. And there you see blue, red, white, and I'm in this area. I can run around. Excellent. Okay, now I'm going to quit. And remember I said I was going to show you quickly how to turn this into a multiplayer map. There's a few very important steps. So let's go over to Applications. Let's go into Launch Level Editor. When I load this up, I'm going to load up my previous map by going, I'll just click the Open and I'll say Test 2. There's our map. I'll right click and drag that back into my center view. Make sure nothing's accidentally selected. Now let's look up the camera inside the player here. Okay, first of all, your multiplayer map will not work with a single player spawn point. Select with the Control, click, and then press the backspace button to delete it. We need to put in different spawn points. And the most important ones to put in for whenever you're running from the editor here that you compile and test the map is to put in the MP and go down to here, Team Deathmatch spawn. I found that I put in that one. Now let's make sure it's not in the floor. It was in the floor. Oh, my grid's changed. Hit the bracket next to the letter P to change it to 8 and move that back down. There we go. And now I need to hit escape, and I want to put in each of these MP TDM spawn points, allies, and then I want to put in the other one, MP TDM spawn axis. There you go. Now I've got each of the players in there, and the map should not have an issue later on. But there's another interesting thing about this, is that whenever the game loads, or whenever the game finishes, what are you going to see? Are you just going to see blank emptiness? Yeah, unless you put in this other entity. Now let's say I want to put it in right over here. You right click and you put in the MP Global Intermission. And that is where the camera is going to be set up whenever you're not in the game, you're just waiting to load or at the end of the game. I'm going to raise it up into the air, and I'm going to press the N key. Remember we changed the position that these guys were looking in, or the single player spawn point was looking? I want to do the same thing to the camera and face it into that area. Okay, press the N key again because I'm done. Escape. Now don't save the map as the test 2. We got to rename it. So I'm going to go to File, Save As, and I'm going to call it MP underscore test 2. Very important that it starts with MP underscore. I'm going to save that. And now my map is saved, and it should be ready to run with your multiplayer. At least for Team Deathmatch. And now I'm going to close this out. And I'm going to go to Level Compiling. I need to refresh my list. There's MP Test 2. Let's compile the BSP. Going to run through this. Yes, it has to open up the game. And depending on how fast your machine is depending on how fast all of this will take place. Usually what I'll end up doing with this is, yeah, I know it's waiting to do something. Well, it's not actually doing much. So I'm going to close it out manually. Alright, done. Now I'm going to compile reflections. Again, this window pops up. Oh, and when it does, my audio for recording, I can't hear myself because the multiplayer game likes to cut out your audio. So let's see. It's still compiling back here, and I can't show you the window. Now this may actually take a while. There we go. Okay, so I just edited that out because it took so long, and it really does take a while to compile those reflections, and it's finally done. Now I'm going to build the fast file. Yes, I know there's no zone files yet, and that's what we're going to create. It runs through, saving. Could not find the mp_test2.csv. That's okay for now. If we run into an issue, we'll take a look at what that is later. And now we can run our selected map. Let's give it a shot and let's see if it works. I'm waiting for it to load up. It says it's loading. Let's auto assign. Let's just pick some gun. Ooh, lots of noise. Okay, waiting for it to spawn. 4, 3, 2, 1, go. There we are. Now we're in the level. Alright, now, here's some important notes for you. If you ran into a point where all you could see is this red blob, well, guess what? It means that you edited your map and you didn't update your zone files. I told you that was an important thing. Now, I want to show you what happens when we do that. And let's see. I'll do it with the MP test. I'm going to go back to the applications and launch the level editor. I'm doing this hopefully for your benefit so that you can get an idea of what happens when you make changes. Now, I'm going to open up my MP test 2. There it is. And I'm going to add a MP VM spawn. There you go. Make sure he's not sticking in the floor. Change my grid. Escape. Save. Close. I made a change. That's all I want to show you. Now, level compiling. Now I can go through the whole compile process again. Yeah, I'm going to have to edit out that next little bit while I compile reflections. I may not even actually have to compile reflections. I may be able to get away without doing that. I can build my fast file, but I'm probably stepping ahead of myself. Notice it says it's missing some other information this time. So I'm going to go to Update Zone File. And when I do, this window pops up and says, hey, we didn't find these assets in your file, and they should be there. Why they're not automatically put in there for me when this happens, I don't know. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select these, hit Control V to copy, go into here, Control V to paste, press save, yes, yes. Now I'm going to rebuild my fast file. And you may come up with, oh my goodness, there's more things missing. It's very possible you have to do this a few times. I'll hit update. Now you don't need duplicates of everything, and I think most of this is a duplicate of what it is. So at this point, the run selected map will work for me, and I won't get this weird red blob of stuff that I can't see. And if you do get it, now you know why. Okay, there you go. So now you learned how to make your basic map, how to get everything running, and how to put out your first map. Oh, and you know, before I finish up here, I want to point out that if you go into your Call of Duty 4 game here, and you go into your zone file, English, because I'm English speaking, and you look down here, you'll find, oh come on, it's in here, test2.ff. That's the file that you can provide to people so that they can play your custom map. Alright, so I hope you found this informational, hope you found it helpful, and if you need any more help, please feel free to go over to the ModsOnline.com forums, check out our tutorials, ask questions, registration's free, and we'll be nice to you. Okay, so have fun and happy mapping.